So, BSB, that was a sad story, wasn't it? Don't worry, I'm not going to tell it all again. But I'm going to take another look. Because the first time I don't think I gave a very good sense of what it was actually like to watch. And of course that's partly because I never did. I and about 59,900,000 other people. But I do have a page from the very first issue of BSB's listings magazine, BSB TV Month. Provided by patron and Twitter follower Stuart Kenny, it details a typical Friday night, or what BSB hoped would become a typical Friday night for BSB subscribers, on April the 20th, naturally of 1990, because that was BSB's only year of transmission. That's within a year of launch, so this is really BSB's best foot forward. And since I don't really have the time or energy to do anything more complicated this month, let's take a look at it. We start with the movie channel, which gets going at noon with the functionally titled magazine show, The Movie Show, with Claire Grogan because she was in movies, and Mark Chase because Channel 4 have outgrown him. The day's movie entertainment proper gets off to a poor start with Which Way to the Front, starring and directed by Jerry Lewis. Between this and the day the clown cried, he effectively brought his movie career to a screeching halt. After a quick, underfed news bulletin, which traditionally followed the movies on the movie channel, things pick up with Carol Reed's classic film version of Oliver, before dipping again, after more news and a repeat showing of the movie show, with Care Bears 2, A New Generation. That's the one with Dark Heart. After that, though, is probably the best film on today, certainly if you don't like musicals, Stand By Me. That takes us past the watershed, so at 10 o'clock we have Children of a Lesser God, which is a good film, but would have been better if they just used frigging subtitles instead of having William Hurt parrot everything Marley Matlin says back to him out loud, as if that makes a difference to her. If he knows sign language, then he knows sign language. He doesn't need to say it out loud. Stupid. Speaking of stupid, everyone's favourite hyper-manly, bearded, kickboxing, bigoted lunatic Chuck Norris arrives just after midnight with Braddock, Missing in Action 3, in which he returns to Vietnam in order to finish off whatever remains of the native population. Finally, at 2 o'clock in the morning, so set your VCRs, it's the Laugh a Geological Epoch Testament. This was part of the mid-80s spate of works about nuclear Armageddon and how we would all die screaming in it. 1983 had already brought us The Day After. 1984 would bring us the monumental Threads. Those dealt with the aftermath of the bomb being dropped relatively nearby. Testament is more like Neville's shoes on the beach. While the characters aren't as far away as Australia, they are far enough away from the epicentre to survive the initial blast, which means that, like on the beach, you're basically in for 90 minutes worth of every character dying of radiation sickness. I say 90 minutes, although the listings magazine only gives it as 45 minutes, I assume that's a misprint. So a mixed day on the movie channel, but some bloody good stuff in there. Moving on to Galaxy, the entertainment channel, and BSB's answer to BBC One. The day on Galaxy gets started at 7 in the morning with an episode of Super Friends. Cool. I hope it's the one where Firestorm thinks he killed Superman. At 7:30, Pre-Mix, which I'm guessing is some sort of strand of bought-in cartoons, containing as it does Fat Albert and Spider-Man. At 8:30, what I'm guessing is a chance to see the previous evening's 31 West, the entertainment show that comes across a bit like the one show in a nuclear bunker. At 9 o'clock, Bewitched, an episode of which I think has been on every single week since at least 1985, on some channel or other in the United Kingdom. Research reveals that this episode is from Season 1, so Dick York. That's followed at 9:30 by the game show Laugh Lines with Nicholas Parsons, and what I expect is a repeat of yesterday's episode of Jupiter Moon, the soap all the way from outer space. At 10:30, yet another airing for the movie show, although this is actually your first chance of the day to see it because the movie channel doesn't open up until noon. Then another half hour's worth of Galaxy Club, including Playabout and the adventures of Norwegian shrinking senior citizen Mrs. Pepperpod. An episode of bland American sitcom The Facts of Life takes us up to noon, whereupon we get to find out the winner of this week's Wife of the Week. This is followed by The Bold and the Beautiful, described as a luxury soap. That's one way of putting it. Then there's an episode of Till Death Us Do Part, and something called Houston Nights, which apparently seems to have been some sort of chalk and cheese buddy cop drama that was so generic that Aaron Spenning could have made it in his sleep, and probably did. That's followed at 2:30 by The Bold and the Beautiful's incestuous sister show The Young and the Restless, and the exact same Galaxy Club pairing of Playabout and Pepperpot again. Then there's an episode of Danger Bay, which, judging by Liz listing, was Canada's most exciting action thriller. To be fair, it was a kids' show, and we are well into this afternoon's Children's BSB, which continues with an episode of Kids Incorporated, which sounds like a Disney take on Roundhouse, only much less fun. And the reign of Galaxy Club comes to a close at 5:30 with a repeat of this morning's pre-mix. Then it's time for new episodes of 31 West at 6 and Jupiter Moon at 30:30, before we race into the evening and prime-ish time. Whoever used to own this magazine has circled the listing for 7 o'clock, and quite right too, because it's one of the very, very, very few repeat showings ever, anywhere, of the goodies. Followed at 7:30 by the news, another episode of Laugh Lines, and then prime time can really begin with a repeat of Secret Army. Well, it was a good show, and it fills an hour, taking us up to 9 o'clock, The Watershed, and Up Your News, which actually wasn't very funny. It didn't help that there was no studio audience to bounce off of, and it really didn't help that the opening monologues were delivered by journalists and not comedians. It's best remembered to this day for giving Chris Morris his first TV work, and frankly that's still what it deserves. And it's only 15 minutes long. Afterwards is one of Galaxy's biggest homegrown entertainment draws, or at least that was the plan, The Triviata, hosted by a then unknown Nick Hancock. It was basically a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks type comedy show, based around trivia and nostalgia. You're well advised to look it up on YouTube, La Triviata, because it really is beyond verbal description, although not in a particularly interesting way. And that was their big primetime draw. Well, that and Dad's Army, at 10 o'clock, where it doesn't really look comfortable even in the listings. After that, there's an episode of the Garrison's Gorillas knockoff Dirty Dozen, another chance to see the movie show, another chance to see The Bold and the Beautiful, another chance to see Up Your News, and another chance to see The Triviata, before Galaxy finally closes down at 1:30. All in all, some interesting stuff on there, but very little to give Jonathan Powell a cold sweat. Let's see how much now can trouble Alan Yentop. The Channel for Living opens up at 9:30 with Left, Right and Centre, basically their answer to Today at Westminster. This is followed by an hour and a half of programming called Living Now, which seems to be there to fulfil the Richard and Judy obligations of the station, consisting of Feeling Good, Parenting, and Plat du Jour, which I'm assuming is a cookery programme. That takes us to 11 in the morning, and VIP, Very Important People, some sort of talk show or something I expect. Midday brings us the pouting Selena Scott with First Edition, followed by a bonus Living Now, Feeling Good with Miriam Stoppard. That's followed at 1:30 by the Countryside programme, and at 2 o'clock, Now Sir Robin, the roundtable discussion programme that really should have been called Round Robin. Between 3 and 4 we get another hour of Living Now. I say another hour, it's almost certainly the same hour. And then at 4, Your World with David Bellamy. The real treat at 5 o'clock for almost nobody. Big City Metro looks at the Berlin Underground. And then at 5:30, a show possibly devised by Alan Partridge, Jack's Game. This week, Jack Charlton goes wildfowling in Scotland. 6 to 7 is Magazine Show Hour, with Front of House looking at what's new in the world of the arts, and Go for Green providing tips on how to offset your liberal guilt. Then there's another hour of Living Now, albeit this time with Feeling Good replaced with Home Life, issues for today's families. And this is followed in the primetime slot with another first edition, another Your World, and Home Life again. At 10:30 there's Smitty with his Stop the Week style talk show It's a Wrap, another chance to see the Plat du Jour in case you care, and then we close down before midnight. Programming wise, now is always stretched the thinnest of all of BSB's channels, and that's saying something. If they had continued on for another year, they probably would have had to repeat the entire year's worth of programming all over again. It took them long enough to find an identity for the station, let alone programming, so unfortunately not the most interesting night's viewing. What about the sports channel? What have they got on offer? Assuming you didn't tune in early by mistake and were greeted by some impenetrable IT jargon. Well, there's very little live action today, but then it is only 1990. Sport as multi-million-pound business has only just reached our shores. We open at 1:25 with another functionally named magazine programme, Sports Desk, followed by another, Racing Today, the afternoon line if you like. At 2 o'clock, some Australian Rugby League, which could have been Melbourne against the Moon for all anyone at BSP knew when they put out this TV listings magazine. And then another couple of magazine programmes, NBA Today, which I think was bought in from the NBA themselves, and Motor World. At 4:30 there's Sport Trade, some sort of biography programme, which again could be about just about anyone as far as the listings magazine knew. And then at 5 o'clock, excitingly enough, an hour of rodeo. Experienced cowboys suffering fractured collarbones in blistering D-Mac. At 6 o'clock it's Sports Desk again, presented by Jerry Richardson, Jeff Stelling and Anna Walker, all of whom, unlike a lot of people on BSB, still have careers. At 6:30 On Four Wheels, which differs from Motor World by not including motorbikes, I expect. At 7:30 more Sports Desk, and then at 8 o'clock our big live draw for the day, darts. With the game starting to decline in popularity, as its presence here on BSB might seem to indicate, the split is just around the corner, but at the moment everyone's all friends, and Eric Bristow and Leighton Rees are captaining two teams in the British International Tournament. And the ladies too will be represented according to the listing. Fancy that. After that there's another episode of Racing Today, another Sports Desk, an NHL magazine that's probably bought in like the NBA one, another Sports Desk, and close down at midnight. Fairly meat and potatoes really, but that's a sports channel for you. Finally the Power Station, probably the hardest one to pull off since it's the youth channel. We start up at 7 o'clock with Power Up. Wake up and groove to the breakfast beats with Chris Evans. Power Up was the Ginger One's first TV work, and it was more or less identical in format to his second, TV Mayhem, although it actually managed to last marginally longer. Anyway, he's on for 2 punishing hours, followed by the Power Chart at 9, and you will spot a distinct pattern in the naming of programmes on this station. At 10 o'clock, dance magazine The Power Club with Mika Paris. Get down and strut to the best in funk, house and disco. It's 1990, we don't know what's going on, help us. At midday, The Power Hour, albums, featuring an album chart and albumy things. Albums. At 1 o'clock, it's Chris Evans and Power Up again for some damn reason, followed at 3 by a surprisingly not Power Preview. A chance for unknown bands to come on the show and unfortunately remain unknown because no sod has a square reel. The Power Club is back at 4 and the Power Chart at 6. At 7, the Power Hour US, America's Top 40 with 100% less Casey Kasem. At 8 o'clock, the Power Hour Dance. Good choice for prime time with house and rave on the rise, except that everybody's already gone out. Oh well. At 9 o'clock, the Power Chart again. At 10 o'clock, the Power Mix, the hippest dance show direct from America. And finally, at 11 o'clock, the Really, Really Odd Couple, described as off the wall, over the top, and on the cutting edge of comedy with Daniel Party Peacock. Whatever that consists of, it apparently lasts for 3 hours because close down is listed as being at 2. But of course, scheduling for the power station is almost past the point. This was BSB's answer to MTV. You were supposed to dip in and out of it or leave it on ambiently, not care particularly what program you were watching. And that would have been your Friday night on BSB 5-channel TV, April the 20th, 1990. And it's still better than what you would have got on Sky. But little, if any, of it challenges what you might have got on terrestrial television, which was surely more to the point. Would you have stayed in on Friday night to watch Dad's Army? Or Children of a Lesser God? Or David Bellamy? At least they didn't have Derek Jameson.